So they went together into town, and as they passed by the butcher's shop, the sparrow said to the dog,
Stand there a little while, till I peck you down a piece of meat."
So the sparrow perched upon the shelf, and having first looked carefully about her to see if anyone was watching her, she pecked and scratched at a steak that lay on the edge of the shelf, till at last down it fell, and the dog snapped it up and scrambled away with it into a corner, where he soon ate it all up.
"Well,"
said the sparrow,
"you shall have some more if you will. So come with me to the next shop, and I will peck you down another steak."
When the dog had eaten this too, the sparrow said to him,
"Well, my good friend, have you had enough yet now?"
"I have had plenty of meat," answered he, "but I should like to have a piece of bread to eat after it."
"Come with me then," said the sparrow, "and you shall soon have that too."
So she took him to the baker's shop, and pecked at 2 rolls that lay in the window, till they fell down, and as the dog still wished for more, she took him to another shop and pecked down some more for him. When that was eaten, the sparrow asked him whether he had had enough now.
"Yes," said he. "And now let us take a walk a little way out of town."
So they both went out upon the high road, but as the weather was warm, they had not gone far before the dog said, "I am very much tired. I should like to take a nap."
"Very well,"
answered the sparrow.
"do so, and in the meantime I will perch upon that bush."
So the dog stretched himself out on the road and fell fast asleep. Whilst he slept, there came by a carter with a cart drawn by 3 horses and loaded with 2 casks of wine. The sparrow, seeing that the carter did not turn out of the way, but would go on the track in which the dog lay, so as to drive over him, called out,
"Stop! Stop, Mr. Carter, or you shall be the worst for you."
But the carter, grumbling to himself,
"You make it the worse for me indeed. What can you do?"
cracked his whip and drove his cart over the poor dog, so that the wheels crushed him to death.
"There!"
cried the sparrow.
"Thou cruel villain! Thou hast killed my friend the dog! Now mind what I say! This deed of thine shall cost thee all thou art worth!"
"Do your worst, and welcome," said the brute. "What harm can you do me?"
And passed on. But the sparrow crept under the tilt of his cart and pecked at a bung of one of the casks till she loosened it. And then all the wine ran out, without the carter seeing it. At last he looked around and saw that the cart was dripping and the cask was quite empty.
"What an unlucky wretch I am!"
cried he.
"Not wretch enough yet,"
said the sparrow, as she alighted upon the head of one of the horses and pocked at him till he reared and kicked. When the carter saw this, he drew out his hatchet and aimed a blow at the sparrow, meaning to kill her. But she flew away, and the blow fell upon the poor horse's head with such a force that he fell down dead.
"Unlucky wretch that I am!"
he cried.
"Not wretch enough yet,"
said the sparrow. And as the carter went on with the two other horses, she again crept under the tilt of the cart and pecked out the bung of the second cask, so that all the wine ran out. When the carter saw this, he again cried out,
Miserable wretch that I am!"
But the sparrow answered,
"Not wretch enough yet,"
and perched on the head of the second horse and pecked at him too. The carter ran up and struck at her again with his hatchet, but away she flew, and the blow fell upon the second horse and killed him on the spot.
"Unlucky wretch that I am!"
said he.
"Not wretch enough yet,"
said the sparrow, and perching upon the third horse, she began to peck him too. The carrier was mad with fury, and without looking about him or caring what he was about, struck again at the sparrow, but killed his third horse, as he had done the other two.
"Alas, miserable wretch that I am!"
cried he.
"Not wretch enough yet,"
answered the sparrow as she flew away.
Now will I plague and punish thee for thine own house."
The carter was forced at last to leave his cart behind him and go home, overflowing with rage and vexation.
"Alas," said he to his wife, "what ill luck has befallen me! My wine is all spilt, and my horses all three dead."
"Alas, husband," replied she, "and a wicked bird has come into the house and has brought with her all the birds in the world, I am sure, and they have fallen upon our corn in the loft and are eating it up at such a rate." Away ran the husband upstairs and saw thousands of birds sitting upon the floor eating up his corn, with the sparrow in the midst of them.
"Unlucky wretch that I am!"
cried the carter, for he saw that the corn was almost all gone.
"Not wretch enough yet,"
said the sparrow.
"Thy cruelty shall cost thee thy life yet."
And away she flew. The carter, seeing that he had thus lost all that he had, went down into the kitchen and was still not sorry for what he had done, but sat himself angrily and sulkily in the chimney corner. But the sparrow sat on the outside of the window and cried,
"Carter, thy cruelty shall cost thee thy life."
With that he jumped up in a rage, seized his hatchet, and threw it at the sparrow, but he missed her. and only broke the window. The sparrow now hopped in, perched on the window seat, and cried, "Carter, it shall cost thee thy life!" Then he became mad and blind with rage, and struck the window seat for such force that he cleft it in two. And as the sparrow flew from place to place, the carter and his wife were so furious that they broke all their furniture, glasses, chairs, benches, the table, and at last the walls, without touching the bird at all. In the end, however, they caught her, and the wife said, "Shall I kill her at once?"
"No," he cried, "that is letting her off too easily. She shall die a much more cruel death. I will eat her."
The sparrow began to flutter about and stretch out her neck and cried, "Carter, it shall cost thee thy life yet!" With that, he could wait no longer, so he gave his wife the hatchet and cried, "Wife, strike at the bird and kill her in my hand." And the wife struck, but she missed her aim and hit her husband on the head, so that he fell down dead, and the sparrow flew quietly home to her nest. Frederick and Catherine. There once was a man called Frederick. He had a wife whose name was Catherine, and they had not long been married. One day Frederick said, "Kate, I am going to work in the fields. When I come back, I shall be hungry, so let me have something nice cooked and a good draught of ale." "Very well," said she, "it shall be ready." When dinner time drew nigh, Catherine took a nice steak, which was all the meat she had, and put it on the fire to fry. The steak soon began to look brown and to crackle in the pan, and Catherine stood by with a fork and turned it. Then she said to herself, "The steak is almost ready. I may as well go to the cellar for the ale." Excuse me. So she left the pan on the fire and took a large jug and went into the cellar and tapped the ale cask. The beer ran into the jug, and Catherine stood on looking. At last it popped into her head. "The dog is not shut up. He may be running away with the steak. That's well thought of." So up she ran from the cellar, and sure enough, the rascally cur had got the steak in his mouth and was making off with it. Anyway, away ran Catherine, and away ran the dog across the field. But he ran faster than she and stuck close to the steak. "It's all gone! And what can't be cured must be endured," said Catherine. So she turned around, and as she had run a good way and was tired, she walked home leisurely to cool herself. Now all this time the ale was running too, for Catherine had not turned the cock. When the jug was full, the liquor ran upon the floor till the cask was empty. When she got to the cellar stairs, she saw what had happened. "My stars!" said she. "What shall I do to keep Frederick from seeing all this slopping about?" So she thought a while, and at the moment remembered that there was a spack of fine meal brought at the last fair, and that if she sprinkled this over the floor, it would suck up the ale nicely. "What a lucky thing," said she, "that we kept that meal. We have now a good use for it." So away she went for it, but she managed to set it down just upon the great jug of the full of beer and upset it, and thus all of the ale that had been saved was set swimming on the floor also. "Ah, well," she said, "when one goes, another may as well follow." Then she strewed the meal all about the cellar, and was quite pleased with her cleverness, and said, "How very neat and clean it looks." At noon Frederick come home. "Now, wife," cried he, what have you for dinner?" "Oh, Frederick," answered she, "I was cooking the steak, but while I went to draw the ale, the dog ran away with it, and while I ran after him, the ale ran out, and when I went to dry up the ale, the sack of meal that we got at the fair, I upset the jug. But the cellar is now quite dry and looks so clean."
"Kate, Kate," said he, "how could you do all this? Why did you leave the steak to fry and the ale to run, and then spoil all the meal?"
"Why, Frederick," said she, I did not know I was doing wrong. You should have told me before." The husband thought to himself, "If my wife manages matters thus, I must look sharp myself." Now he had a good deal of gold in the house, so he said to Catherine, "What pretty yellow buttons these are! I shall put them into a box and bury them in the garden, but take care that you never go near or meddle with them." "No, Frederick," said she, "that I never will." As soon as he was gone, there came by some peddlers with earthenware plates and dishes, and they asked her whether she would buy. "Oh, dear me, I should like to buy them very much, but I have no money." "If you had any use for yellow buttons, I might deal with you."
"Yellow buttons?"
"Yellow buttons," said they. "Let's have a look at them. Go into the garden and dig where I tell you, and you will find the yellow buttons. I dare not go myself." So the rogues went, and they found what these yellow buttons were. They took them all away and left her plenty of plates and dishes. Then she set them all about the house for a show. And when Frederick came back, he cried out, "Kate, what have you been doing?" "See," said she, "I have bought all these with your yellow buttons, but I did not touch them myself. The peddlers went themselves and dug them up."
"Wife, wife," said Frederick, "what a pretty piece of work you have made. Those yellow buttons were all my money. How came you to do such a thing?"
"Why," answered she, "I did not know there was any harm in it. You should have told me." Catherine stood amusing for a while, and at last said to her husband, "Harkye, Frederick, we will soon get the gold back. Let us run after the thieves."
Well, we will try, answered he, but take some butter and cheese with you, that we may have something to eat by the way.
Very well, said she, and they set out. And as Frederick walked the fastest, he left his wife some way behind. It does not matter, thought she. When we turn back, I shall be so much nearer home than he. Presently, she came to the top of the hill, down the side of which there was a road so narrow that the cartwheels always caffed the trees on each side as they passed. "Ah, I see. Ah, see now," said she, "how they have bruised and wounded those poor trees. They will never get well." So she took pity on them and made use of the butter to grease them all, so that the wheels might not hurt them so much. While she was doing this kind office, one of her cheeses fell out of the basket and rolled down the hill. Catherine looked, but could not see where it was gone. So she said, "Well, I suppose the other will go the way and find you. He has younger legs than I have." Then she lulled the other cheese after it, and away it went. Nobody knows where down the hill, but she said she supposed they knew the road and would follow her, and she could not stay there all day waiting for them. At last she overtook Frederick, who desired to get her to give him something to eat. Then she gave him the dry bread. "Where are the butter and cheese?" said he. "Oh," answered she, "I used the butter to grease those poor trees that the wheels caffed so, and one of the cheeses ran away, so I sent the other after it to find it. And I suppose they are both on the road together somewhere." "What a goose you are to do such silly things," said the husband. How can you say so?" said she. "I am sure you never told me. I am sure you never told me not." They ate the dry bread together, and Frederick said, "Kate, I hope you locked the door safe when you came away." "No," answered she. "You did not tell me." "Then go home and do it." "Now, before we go any further," said Frederick, "and bring with you something to eat." Catherine did as he told her, and thought to herself by the way, "Frederick wants something to eat, but I don't think he is very fond of butter and cheese. I'll bring him a bag of fine nuts and the vinegar, for I have often seen him take some." When she reached home, she bolted the back door, but the front door she took off the hinges and said, "Frederick told me to lock the door, but surely it can nowhere be so safe as if I take it with me." So she took her time by the way, And when she overtook her husband, she cried out, "There, Frederick, there is the door itself. Now you may watch it as carefully as you please."
"Alas, alas," said he, what a clever wife I have. I sent you to make the house fast, and you take the door away, so that everybody may go in and out as they please. However, as you have brought the door, you shall carry it about with you for your pains."
"Very well," answered she. "I'll carry the door. But I'll not carry the nuts and vinegar bottle also. That would be too much of a load. So, if you please, I'll fasten them to the door." Frederick, of course, made no objection to the plan, and they set off into the wood to look for the thieves, but they could not find them, and when it grew dark, they climbed into a tree to spend the night. Scarcely were they up than who should come by but the very rogues they were looking for. They were in truth great rascals, and belonged to the class of people who find things before they are lost. They were tired, so they sat down and made a fire under the very tree where Frederick and Catherine were. Frederick slipped down on the other side and picked up some stones. Then he climbed up again and tried to hit the thieves. On the head with them. But they only said, "It must be near morning, for the wind shakes the third apples down." Catherine, who had the door on her shoulder, began to be very sad, very tired. But she thought it was the nuts upon it that were so heavy, so she said softly, "Frederick, I must let the nuts go." "No," answered he, "not now. They will discover us." "I can't help that. They must go." "Well, then make haste and throw them down if you will." Then away rattled the nuts down among the bots, and one of the thieves cried, "Bless me, it is hailing!" A little while after Catherine thought the door was still very heavy, she whispered to Frederick, "I must throw the vinegar down." "Pray don't," answered he. "It will discover us." "I can't help that," said she. "Go it must." So she poured all the vinegar down, and the thieves said, "What a heavy dew there is." At last it popped into Catherine's head that it was the door itself that was so heavy all the time. So she whispered, "Frederick, I must throw the door down soon." But he begged and prayed her not to do so, for he was sure it would betray them. "Here goes, however," said she, and down went the door with such a clatter upon the thieves that they cried out, "Murder!" and not knowing what was coming, ran away as fast as they could and left all the gold. So Catherine was right at last, and when she and Frederick came down, they found all their money safe and sound.